Um, well, we got to chat a little bit before, uh, kind of before the actual podcast, but um, I think there's a good amount of people in back home in our area that probably are familiar with you, but I'd love for you to just take a moment and kind of give your personal story, personal introduction, whatever you want to call it, and for anybody who maybe doesn't know who you are or what you do, I'd love to just kind of have you give a little tidbit on that, and then we can kind of jump out from there.
Yeah, well, I'm Chris Stocks, Poplar Bluff native, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Was born and basically raised somewhat of a stint out of state and out of country, but basically born and raised southeast Missouri and was a local, student athlete, did the whole thing. And now I am an entrepreneur. I live in southern Colorado, Colorado Springs, and I started a home service company. And and yeah, I started a business and kind of got the entrepreneurial bug and didn't realize that was, the current path for me right now. And so here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're from Popper Bluff. How did you end up in Colorado? I don't imagine there's probably too many Bluffians running around out there.
No, there's one other my buddy who I got to move out here to work, but
Awesome.
no, basically just playing college basketball, getting a scholarship to finish out here at an NCAA Division two school, University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. Um, so I had family out here. My sister was like suburb of Denver, and she wanted my wife and I to. They were like pushing for us to come out here because they didn't really have any family out here, and I reached out to a couple of schools because COVID and extra eligibility, and I just
Right.
Coach Jeff gave me a scholarship to work on my master's, and so I was like, all right, we'll go try Colorado and see how it goes. So this is year 4 or 5 now. Maybe technically it will be our fifth year in August. Um, no, fourth year, 4 or 5, I forget, but.
Nice.
That's how I ended out here. Was
Oh,
just college, being a college athlete.
okay. Awesome. Awesome. So you like it out there, I guess. It's not too bad, I imagine.
No, it's nice. I feel spoiled. No
Yeah.
bugs. I haven't seen a mosquito. I've probably seen like 3 mosquitoes in the last 5 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's no mosquitoes, no bugs, no humidity. So you don't really sweat too much. So it's nice, sunny. All 12 months. It gets cold, but it doesn't really feel cold because the sun's out. So
Right.
the elevation is a bit different. It's a bit of an adjustment. Like the first, I would say for like if for just living, probably the first like 4 to 6 months, you're just kind of getting used to it. But me being playing sports, it was like, and like being like I work out a lot,
Yeah.
or I haven't lately, but like I'm pretty active and I like to exercise. It's still taken me, it seems like the whole time to get used to it because I would get like cotton mouth and the whole thing. But
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've
it's
heard
nice.
I've heard if you don't live out there, you're not from there, that when you visit for the first time, you have to acclimate for a while before you kind of get used to it, right?
Yeah, that's accurate. Like
Yeah.
basically, yeah, it's super dry. So like chapstick, water, you can get headaches if you like from the elevation if you
Yeah.
don't, stay hydrated, or if you don't, if you're not used to being active,
Right.
like you better just kind of brace yourself because it's the air is thinner. I mean, you're a mile closer to the sun, so yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, man, you said you were studying your master's. What's your degree in?
Yeah, so my undergrad is exercise science, which is like athlete default for don't know what the heck you want to do. But my master's, I still have two
Yeah.
classes left technically because I stopped. But it's in education with principal licensure. And I stopped because I realized I was an entrepreneur and I'm never probably going to use this degree. Um,
Yeah.
so I know like my mom and people are like, oh, finish it, but I'm like, I will.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's a scam. Like, so I don't know.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I get it. I kind of did I did the shuffle too. I think I started in engineering. I was studying like civil engineering or something like that, and then I kind of went undecided, and then I did nursing. In my head, I was like, well, I'll just do jobs that there's always a need for. That always makes sense. And I was kind of the same way. I was like, I got through it and realized there's no point in doing something that you're just not passionate about or not motivated to. And so I'm kind of in the same boat of like, I haven't written off college, but if I'm going to go back, it's going to be for something that I want to do and I'm passionate about, not just for the sake of having a degree. So,
yeah.
man, I get it.
I have a doctorate in
So,
being an injured college athlete. That's my
hey,
most
hey, that's
impressive.
something. That's funny. Yeah. No, hey, that counts for something. So awesome. So you said you own or you have a service business. What kind of business do you have right now?
Yeah, so it's pretty much a window cleaning company. We do a couple other things, but we do 99% residential window cleaning.
Okay. Awesome. So I'd love to hear, because I imagine for most people in the Bluff or Southeast Missouri area, a window cleaning business might sound like a unique business, right? Something that may not make sense. I've never had somebody ask me to clean my windows. So why don't you, if you're able to, kind of walk me through how you got from I'm an entrepreneur, I want to run my own business, I want to do this, to I'm going to clean windows, and kind of that whole process.
Yeah, so technically it's actually my third business that I attempted to start. The first two kind of flopped.
Okay.
The first one was in trading, in day trading.
Okay.
It was a good business model, and I know people who are still doing it. It's profitable. It just wasn't. I was gonna
Yeah.
go in with three other people. We were gonna create this whole story and training process, and partner was not being truthful, so I just had to pull out of that. No ton
Yeah.
of buddies who still do that. Second one, I was just flipping stuff on the internet, like literally yard sales, like, and made some money. Also had a buddy who was doing it with me, and then he moved back to like Arkansas area, and I was like, all right, so I
Okay.
can't do that. So then, essentially, I was officiating high school basketball at the time because I really love that stupid orange ball that
Yeah.
bounces, and um, I saw these kids on the internet doing door to door sales, and they were making good money, and I said, well, let me see if any of my neighbors will let me do something along those lines. And mind
Yeah.
you, where I stay, my wife and I stay, is like super modest, like downtown kind of Colorado Springs, quiet, older, not like affluent area by any means. And so,
Yeah.
not the best place you want to go door to door as a door to door sales rep selling a
Right.
luxury service. So essentially, I had maybe an hour and some change to go, see if anyone would let me do it. I went up to start knocking on my first door, and I couldn't get myself to do it. Like my heart's beating. I was like,
Yeah.
the like I couldn't put. I was like listening to motivational stuff in my headphones. I'm like, what is going
Yeah.
on? So I mustered up courage to go knock on a door. My heart's about to pop out of my chest, and no one answered. And I was so relieved. But then right afterwards, I realized, okay, I actually need to talk to someone. And so,
Yeah.
I knocked on the, kept knocking on the rest of the street. No one was home until I got to the corner. I talked to this gal. She was super chill. She let me count the windows. She had a bunch of solar panels, so I was gonna try to, I don't know, throw her some sort of a deal. Had her right on the
Yeah.
cusp. She ended up saying, no, I'm all good, whatever. I said, cool, no worries. And after that, I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But still, I
Right.
needed to get someone to say yes just for the proof of concept for me. And I was running out
Yeah.
of time because I needed to go officiate. So I talked to another guy, had him on the cusp. He said no. And basically I was like, well, I got enough time for one more person. So I knock on this guy's door. I say, hey, neighbor, I'm Chris. I have a window cleaning company. Mind you, I don't have a window cleaning company. I just needed
Yeah.
to stack some evidence. So I said, yeah, I live on such and such street around the corner, just kind of helping out a bunch of the folks. I'll count up the windows, get you a price, and then I got to go anyway. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. So I come back, give him a price. His windows were filthy. Like, his windows were bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, we agreed to a deal. And he's like, well, when are you going to get it done? And I say, well, I'm all done for today because I didn't know how to clean windows. I was just literally trying to see if someone would say yes. And
Yeah.
and so I tell him I'll be back tomorrow, whenever. I go ref the games, and then it's 9 o'clock at night. I go to Home Depot, buy a bucket, mop, soap, squeegee, towel, all the stuff, cheap stuff, and I show up the next day, clean his windows, and he pays me like $200. And I think I pressure washed something on his back
Wow.
patio with this old Facebook pressure washer I had. And at that point, I was like, okay, that wasn't awful. Now I need to actually go to like some affluent areas and talk to like people with expendable, or disposable income, who
Right.
actually would pay for luxury, services like this. Um,
Yeah.
and that's how it started. And it snowballed into something that I, didn't really foresee happening at the scale that we were able to do with me and my team in the first year. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. We were really blessed. We serviced, I think, like
That's awesome.
1,900 plus people in the first year.
Oh wow.
99% residential, all Southern Colorado. Um, and yeah, it was like a movie. It was crazy. So it's pretty
Yeah,
nuts.
that's awesome, man.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Split Screen Media. Let's be honest, marketing is not just about ads and selling anymore. If you want to keep people engaged, whether it's online or in person, you have to offer value. At Split Screen Media, we specialize in content marketing. What does that mean? It means we don't just make ads that promote your brand, we make content that people actually want to engage with. Whether it's an eye-catching video, a bold graphic design, or a website that actually works and converts for your business, those are all things that we do and we can help you with. So if you're tired of wasting money on billboards, radio ads, or anything else that you feel like isn't working for your business, please feel free to reach out to us at splitscreenmedia.net or visit us online on any of our socials at Split Screen Media. Thank you, Split Screen Media, for sponsoring this podcast.
Yeah. So last year was your first year, and you ended at 1,900, like home service, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great, man. That's like, I mean, that's a great, in my opinion, that sounds like a great first year. So, um, I do love your kind of retelling of your first knock on the door and all that, because as much as I don't like to admit it, I think sales is probably one of the hardest jobs you can do, and as any business owner, you're going to end up doing sales at some point. So um, I think that's very relatable of kind of that beating in your chest and not sure what they're going to say,
Oh
because
yeah.
I think in the back of our head we all kind of have that fear that somebody's going to pick up the phone or open the door and they're just gonna be like, "Are you insane? Are you dumb? There's no way in the world you could be asking me this right now." And obviously that like never happens, but I think that's the fear
Yeah.
when you're doing that, especially for the first time. So,
Oh yeah. There was
so
there
what
was
is?
plenty of those interactions too. Not to cut that thought off, but just for
Yeah,
reference, it
no, I'd
sounds people need to hear this because 2,000 customers in the first year, I'll go do it. Sales, to your point, is hard. Door to door sales is cruel and unusual punishment. So you go through all the
yeah,
emotions in one day. So like literally like get your butt off the porch. Like can't you read the sign? Like
yeah,
no soliciting signs. Like I knock everything. Now I'm
yeah,
pleasant and persistent and I crack jokes and I make people's day better. But there's always those Karens that just kind of we joke around it's like, oh, this guy hates his life. He just screamed at us and this and that. But it was like me, some teenagers, like young guys, just literally hustling and trying to, provide a service for people. But yeah, it's like it's not as easy as it kind of sounds. It's like the hardest thing I've ever done. And there's more context. Like I paid a lot of money for sales training. when I didn't have any
Yeah.
money. I took a student loan to buy like a sales course online from like a guru, like literally. So the story sounds really nice and smooth, but there's a lot of intricacies that go into the telling of it all. It was really, when I say it was a movie, it was pretty insane. So
Yeah. Well,
um,
why don't you walk us through that a little bit, where how you got from that first, because the way you told the story, it sounds like maybe that first guy helped pay for your equipment that you bought that night at Home Depot. From there on, maybe
oh
walk us
yeah.
through kind of your journey there. Kind of from the point of view of I'm a business owner now, looking back, how it all went.
Yeah. So basically after that, um, I think I had like $70 in my bank account, literally. Like my wife's working, I'm still a student. And the culmination of all this was, I got that first feeling in the pit of my stomach of like not having any money or being broke. And so I remember, I don't know exactly when, but I remember telling myself at that moment, I will never feel like this ever again for another day in my life. And then I also remember
Yeah.
promising myself that I was going to retire my wife this year and she would never have to work another day if she didn't want to. And so the culmination of me going out to actually knock the first door was part of that. Directly after that, I spent, I don't know, a week or two in an affluent area. I go to the affluent
Hmm.
area after the first sale, the first window cleaning job. I kid you not, the first house. And okay, let me back up. I could only do one story houses because I didn't have any equipment. I had this like old beat up Camry that my teammate sold me. Um, and I had to do stuff by hand. So I put the pressure washer
Yeah.
in the back, and I had like hand scrubber squeegee stuff. So I couldn't do second stories very well. I had a small ladder that I put
Yeah.
in there, but I couldn't really. So I could only knock on these one story houses that are in the nice neighborhoods. Okay, so I kid you not, the first house I knock on in the nice neighborhood, the lady's like, "Oh, I've been looking for someone to clean my windows." Boom, like 250 easy. And at that
Nice.
point, I'm like, it's like I just cracked a code. Like this is insane.
Right.
So I tell her I'm gonna start in the afternoon, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to try to line up like one or two more jobs. So I kept
Yeah.
knocking for the next couple hours and very humbly realized this was gonna be a lot harder than I thought. Like a bunch of no's, bunch of door slams. So um I go back, clean the job. I do that for maybe 1 to 2 weeks of like just using basic framework of a sales script that I saw from the guys online. But I knew the way that they
Yeah.
were editing their content, there's like stuff in the middle to handle objections and other things that they would purposefully cut out because they want you to pay for the course. And so I was trying to fill in that middle gap and I was making some sales. And I bought
Yeah.
a little bit of a better equipment like on Amazon, still pretty cheap stuff, but stuff to get to second story. It was like basically a pure water tank to deionize the water to clean. Anyway, um, but I knew that there was something missing that I needed to do. So what I did was I took out a loan um, for like from my school to it was like maybe three grand or something, like a $3,000 loan. I took a loan out and I paid for sales course online, which was like 6 grand or something like that. So I didn't pay for the whole thing, but I paid for like a third of it. And
Yeah.
then I used part of it to buy some nicer stuff. And I took a huge risk with that.
Yeah.
I don't even think I told my wife at the time, but I was so convinced in my mind. I was so convinced in my mind. I was like, I can do this. Like I'm crazy in the head. I'm just gonna be extremely scrappy and resilient, and I'm gonna knock on a million doors, and I'm gonna sell this service, and people are gonna love it. And so I had done that for like maybe 1 to 2 weeks. Bought the sales course. Immediately like had to submerge myself in it. Start studying. I remember it talked about buying buyer seller psychology, and so the next day I used that, and I had set up like probably like almost $1,000 in window cleaning, like really easily. Um, and I had a buddy who would like play basketball with me, and I said, "All right, John, his name is John. I'm gonna just try to set up some work for you, like tomorrow or whenever that day was." and you can go clean. And so with the system, basically all you need to do is scrub and rinse, and it dries streak free. So I knocked on some doors. I set up like $800 or $1,000, like a full day's worth of cleaning, basically. And I remember sending John to go do it and take care of those customers the next day. And I just remember being so excited and so like confident because that was more money than I had ever seen. That most of us ever see like in a day, and I didn't have
Right.
to do any of the work. I capitalism, like I didn't have to do
Yeah.
anything. So, and I was paying him, good money, like I don't know, like $20 an hour or something like that. And so, 6, 8, 10 hours, he could go take care of it all, with all the equipment that I gave him. And I just remember checking in on him later in the day and checking in on the customers and collecting payment and going from there. And so I went pretty aggro, but I just went from, okay, me sell a job, me sell several jobs, me hire a worker and start selling more jobs so that the worker can clean and then I can spend more time selling jobs. That was the
Yeah.
progression. And so I just took a buddy and we did that. The next progression was, all right, I'm gonna train someone else to sell with me and give him commission. So I had a buddy fly out, trained him the script and how to do it and how to like basic, things. And then he came out for like 2 or 3 weeks and he started selling. And then I had to hire another cleaner. So basically, we would have a couple cleaners and then a couple sales reps just kind of, we call it buzzing when you're buzzing in a neighborhood. It's like you start knowing
Yeah.
everybody's names and the guard dogs, and it's a lot of fun. And so then, after I hired one sales rep, I took on two cleaners. So I would literally start in the hole for a day. I would start at the beginning of the day. I would start in the hole minus $400 for the day, which sounds absolutely absurd because it was. But I had got really confident in my ability to sell, and I was just studying every day,
Yeah.
like in the car, in the shower, like I was just practicing all of the things. And so I would start in the hole myself with two cleaners. And I would start minus 400. So pressure's on from early in the day. And, start in the hole minus 400. And by the end of the day, they're cleaning like $1,800, something crazy like that in window cleaning. And I'm like, this is absurd.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
I didn't have to do any of the labor. Now I had to monitor and make sure they were doing stuff correctly and things like
Right.
that, but do all the regular business things. But that was the progression. And then to end, it would
Yeah.
have been 2023, the fall, because I only had a short, like 1 to 2 month window when I very first started. I had 3 people fly out to be sales reps, and then I hired 3 cleaners, and we did what you call a sales blitz, which is a short term extravaganza of door knocking. And we did that for a long weekend, and we absolutely crushed it. And I taught these sales reps an amazing skill, and they were mind blown by, we, just door to door sales in general is crazy. It'll change your life if you do it. But essentially, we did that, and that was the end because we ended literally the weekend with a winter, like a blizzard, come in. And so we
Yeah.
cleaned a bunch of windows, everyone flew home, and then from that point on, just started plotting for what turned into 2024 with a sales team and
Yeah.
buying trucks and vehicles and getting all the business back end stuff in place. And I was monologuing there for a minute, but it's very important.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was stupid. It was wild. So how
Yeah,
it
man. I mean,
transpired.
basically, it sounds like you kind of got the proof of concept, and that's one thing they talk about really in any business is that you have to. A business idea is great, right? But you have to prove that people are looking for it. And if they're not, then you could have the best business idea in the world, but it doesn't really matter. So it sounds like that's where you started off, and then as time went on, you turned it into kind of this full system that you're able to work through. And I think the best thing about kind of your story is I think there's a lot of potential businesses that could work off that strategy there of, door-to-door sales. Like you said, it's not easy. Certainly don't want anybody watching this to think I could wake up tomorrow and do that. Like there's skills you have to learn, and you have to be motivated and all of that. So, but I think as far as types of businesses, whether that's mowing or pressure washing or, there's a lot of things that I think could work off this framework. What are some tips or what are some strategies from what you've learned that you would give to somebody who maybe wants to mow yards or clean windows or anything like that?
Um, for anything that specific and being an entrepreneur in general, but entrepreneurship, I think you and I talked about this. It's like building an airplane in the middle of the air without anything. It's like, or building your parachute while on the way down from nothing. And then like also trying to learn how to fly the plane all at the same time.
Right.
The biggest thing is the unknown, or failing. You spend all your time or you have an idea and you spend your time working towards it, not knowing if it's gonna really work out in the end. So you kind of have to have
Right.
this. You have to have this gritty like resilience about yourself in any form of entrepreneurship, um, and you have to get very familiar with being uncomfortable, essentially. So
Yeah.
what I do, relating to what I do, and what anybody who watches this, or young kids, or anybody, they can go cut grass or shovel snow or clean windows or HVAC or roofing or whatever it is. Um, the cool thing about door to door is it's low barrier to entry. You don't need anything to get started.
Right.
So the only thing you need to do is check your ego at the door, which I think being an athlete
Right.
helps as well. If anyone's been a part of a team, you have to sacrifice usually. So checking your ego at the door and just go do it. And essentially, you can't be reactive when people tell you no. Because statistically, what I do is 9 out of 10 people say no. So, excuse me, 1 out of 10 people will say yes. So what does that mean?
Right.
All it means is, okay, I just need to go talk to more people, statistically. So if I knock on 100 doors, only 50 people are home, that means roughly 5 people are going to say yes. Roughly. So that means, there's ebbs and flows and there's pockets, of course. And, I've hit streets where I've done 6, 8 people in a row, quite literally. And I'll knock on the 8th door and be like, hey, Johnny and Susan and Sarah and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm so sorry. They told me come up to the cul-de-sac, talk to y'all. And, anyway, but you need to be prepared for the failures in anything that you're going to do.
Right.
But the cool thing with door-to-door is you don't
streets...
need anything. So.
Oh, I was just gonna say those streets where you hit 8 sales in a row, they make you feel like you got something figured out.
That's
and
why.
and then you hit the streets where, and then you hit the streets where you hit 0 for 50, and you're like, maybe I don't.
Yeah, I was in Vegas for 6 weeks helping another company. I was running a door-to-door sales team for them, in Las Vegas, and that was the toughest market I've ever been to. And I've been to about 3 or 4 markets. And that market was so heavily solicited by every company under the sun. People just,
oh wow,
when you knock on the door, their guard is so high, and they don't want to hear what you're doing. So I can't just be like, "Hey, have you seen the ugly white guys on the street last day and a half?" Like they just want to know who you are, what you're doing. I'm like, "Hey, I'm just a window kid. I'm taking care of Johnny next door." It's like, boom, not interested. That was a heavily solicited area. It was really difficult. It was a lot of fun though. I think my numbers on that was every 50 doors was a sale, roughly. So you got to think, if I knock on 150 doors in one day, I'm only getting 3 sales.
Yeah, that's rough.
So a lot of the times it's just a numbers game at that point.
Yeah.
Now, on the caveat to that is I don't want to just say it's just a numbers game, because you can always get better at your ability to sell. But The cool thing about door to door is you don't need anything, and you can just go out there and knock on as many doors as you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I would love to hear. I would love to hear maybe some more in depth. You can call it advice, you can call it tips, whatever you want. But I mean, it sounds like for you personally, a lot of your success comes from kind of your ability to sell and to make those sales happen. And the beauty of door to door is you're getting that opportunity. Like you said, maybe it might be 150 times in one day. It could be more, it could be less. So, what are some things now as I'm going to use quotes here, salesperson, even though it's more than that. But what are some things now as like kind of a tenured salesperson in door to door that you wish you would have known maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was exactly that you got started?
The number one thing I wish I would have known, and I got this from a mentor who I also knocked on this guy's house, who owns a $60 million pest control company. The first
Oh,
thing I
wow.
wish I would have done at the very beginning was to not sell one-time services. So I would knock on the
Hmm.
door. Hey, I'd usually charge you probably like 350. We can do it for 250. You got a big house. I'm like, sound good? And they'd be like, all right, yeah, go ahead. Instead, what I wish I would have done is, hey, so we have three options. We have like our one time, twice a year, quarterly. Which one works best for you? And I would have put them on plans, and I'll get into that
Yeah.
later because we basically the business model now is recurring customers. Um,
Right.
as far as specifically to the door to door side, I was pretty prepared for um,
Yeah.
the lows and the highs. I had a really good, I think, objective understanding on, hey, this is going to be really difficult. Take each day in stride and just get better and take the training seriously and study the modules seriously. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's one particular thing that I wish I would have known on the sales side. I think it would have been to push harder off rip.
Okay.
So like in sales, I try to do three things. I try to be extremely pleasant, which I do a good job at that. I try to be persuasive, which I think I do a good um, job at that, and then I try to be persistent, which I think out of those pillars, I could have done a better job. Meaning, instead of them saying no the first time and then me walking away, I could stay on the door and I could still be pleasant and I could still be persuasive, but I could maybe be a little bit more persistent and maybe get them to tell me no, you know, four times before I walked away. Or
Yeah.
basically, I wish I would have decided when I left someone's doorstep, if that makes sense. Because in sales, if you're not persistent, you're not going to get deals. If you're not persuasive, you're not going to get deals. And if you're not pleasant, you're not going to get deals. So
Yeah.
the first two I were pretty good at. I wish I would have been a little bit more persistent because usually people, what they train us is people just don't listen. Like when me and you walk into Nike, the dude comes up and he says, "Hey, can I help you guys with anything?" And our initial reaction is, "Oh no, I'm good. I'm just looking around."
Right.
Because in sales, as far as buyer psychology goes, we all love to buy things. I love to buy, like I would go in and buy every custom vintage Denver Nugget hat in the store. I would buy all that.
Yeah.
Because I love buying, but I hate to be sold. We hate to be sold things. So we love
Right.
buying, but we hate to be sold. So basically, what I'm describing is sales patterns by the prospect being detective. So I knock on the door. I'm like, "Hey, I'm with Glide Guys Window Cleaning, and I'm doing all the window cleaning for your neighbors. I'll just get you a quote." It's like, you're trying to sell me something. Boom. Versus, I open the door and I say, "Oh, hey, are you guys? Have you guys like seen us yesterday or today?" So what I'm doing is I'm trying to build curiosity off the door because they don't have any idea. You don't have any idea what I'm doing if I come like that. If I knock on your door like that, I'm
Right.
like kind of aloof, and it's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
have you guys haven't seen me or my kiddos the last day and a half, have you?" They're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm Chris. I just popped by. We're doing all this stuff. Take two steps, and then I gotta leave." And then I literally just walk and I don't look at them, and they'll follow me, and I'll just start drawing on like the dirty windows. Um, and basically I'll be like, yeah, I'm like the local window cleaner. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, windows are dirty. Give me a price. Versus I knock on the door and I'm like, hey, this is my company and I clean windows. It's like, I'm good, buddy. Like, so there's some things that I had to learn, but the persistence, I think when people telling me no the first time, they're like, oh, my husband does it. And I'm like, oh, okay, have a nice day. Versus now, it's like, everyone's husband just wakes up excited to get on the ladder. I'll just get you a price just for next time. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, usually what people tell you on the door is a smoke screen. So you have to be a little bit more persistent. Kind of rambling at this point, but the persistence early on is what I wish I would have taken seriously, because I'm trying to be logical and they're giving me, you have to overcome logic with illogic. And that doesn't make sense. But if someone says my husband does it, I just need to bypass that smoke screen as quick as I can and at least try to present them a price and then just give them a deal at the end, and, something like that. Anyway, if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I've read something before. It's been a while, but I think it's like 7 to 14 touch points is normally what it takes to get a sale, right? So, I would be curious on the window cleaning stuff if there's any, obviously you probably don't have this data just on a sheet somewhere, but if there's ever been a neighborhood you've gone back to, more than once, like where there's some people that the first or second time you got to know, but then, the third, fourth, fifth time or whatever that number was, they were like, okay, John's house is looking pretty good. You guys have been back a couple times. Like, yeah, we'll do it. And I think, like you said, that persistence, I think is such a good point. Because I think most people can do the first two well, right? Being pleasant. And what was the second one you said? Being pleasant,
persuasive, pleasant, persuasive, and persistent.
I think. Yeah. So I think both of those are things that people can decently do well, but I think sometimes we forget how to be persistent. Because it seems pushy or salesy or whatever. But
exactly.
I do want to maybe ask some questions. You said you bought a sales training. Tell me a little bit about that and whether you feel like that benefited you, or maybe, maybe it was something where like I probably would have got here, but it got me there sooner. Anything like that. Because I've seen those kind of sales guru guys before, and I'll be honest, they all kind of seem a little fishy to me, but I'd love to hear the impression from somebody who's done it and been through one, what they think.
Yeah, I think first thing, whenever you have to put this in perspective, because people are going to not have a positive reaction to your ideas. Usually they're going to shoot it down, but respectfully, you shouldn't be taking advice from those people. And the reason is because they're not necessarily living the lifestyle or living out the goals that you have. So why should I listen to them, if that makes sense? For example, I wanted to be a D1 basketball athlete. So why am I listening to my teammates and other random people in the school or in the community that have never done that? Why would I ever listen to anything they had to say? So same thing in business. If you have a goal or you're trying to accomplish something, and it sounds harsh, but why would I ever listen to you? Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Respectfully, I'm not trying to insult people like that. And unfortunately, it's usually our family and the closest people to us. But I had to like tread carefully and cut off the negative thoughts that people were putting into my ear. And on the contrary, what I did was I paid for education, right? And people think it's crazy to buy a sales course from a sales guru. But what do we do? What are we conditioned to do in the U.S.? We're conditioned to go into thousands of dollars of debt for education, for whatever that job you might be able to get. But people will call you crazy for spending, in my case, $6,000 on sales education and training and mentorship. So I'm not saying that every course is like the best fit. When some people probably don't provide as much value as others, but what I am saying is,
right,
it's always a net positive, even if you invest into some sort of material or training or guru course or something, and even if it doesn't work out, it's still a net positive because you did it, you tried it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. Yeah. And when we cut out there for a minute, or at least when I cut out, because I could still hear you, I was asking about the course. Basically, if you felt like it was worth it, maybe what your takeaways were from a course like that.
Yeah.
Because I 100% agree. In your case, if you buy a course like that, and let's say it really works, and you're like, okay, this is exactly what I was looking for, you probably made your money back on that in like a month, if not less. Whereas, obviously, if it was a bust, then it would just been thrown away. So I guess when you look at because I've seen courses like that before, and in my opinion, not in my opinion, from what I've seen, they just look kind of fishy, right?
Yeah.
Because it's usually this random person, and
Yep.
you don't know who they are, you don't know what they're about. So I guess from that course, like, what was your takeaway? Was it worth it? Like, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Or if somebody else is maybe interested in buying one, like what was your impression after you got done with it?
Yeah, it was definitely worth it, 100%. I think I ended up paying them closer to 20,000 when it was all said and done after I jumped into
Oh
like
wow.
higher tier stuff. I didn't do that off rip,
Yeah.
but the initial investment was I think $5,800, and I didn't pay it all up front. I like paid a down payment, and then they put me on a
Yeah.
plan, which was fine. It was 100x worth of value, like 100x worth of value. I could make that. I was with the skills that they gave me, I could go make that back in less than a week. Just if I was dropped,
Wow.
if I was dropped in the middle of a random city with the knowledge that I was able to obtain. I'm not saying everything in the course was perfect, because the guy who runs it is not necessarily a person I would associate myself with, but the skills I was able to learn,
Yeah.
you could drop me in the middle of any city in the country, and within a week I would have my business like starting to already re-automate itself, and I would be fine. Like I could go get a
Wow.
squeegee from a gas station. I would ask someone for $1 to buy some soap. I would go clean windows, and I would literally be okay. So yeah, 100%
Wow.
worth it. Obviously, I don't use everything that they taught in there now as far as
Mm-hmm.
job fulfillment goes, which is a different story. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was 100% worth it. And I would say even if it flopped, it still would have propelled me into the next thing, whatever it was. So I would say if someone's on the fringe or if they're scared, yeah, do some research, make sure it kind of checks out. Um, but if you're willing to jump into something and go all in, you're gonna find positive takeaways every single time. Every single time.
Yeah.
And it might not be exactly how you pictured it. Um, but usually you'll turn that into gained XP for the future. So yeah, 100% worth it. I would do it all over again. That's not the last course I bought since then for education. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm trying to think of like a good like wrap up question, because I think your story is really unique. You talk to a lot of business owners, and a lot of times it's maybe it might be the family business, or it's just kind of what everyone around them, kind of like what you were saying, told you, kind of tells you to do, or what makes sense. And I think in your case, it was more of like a try it till I figure it out, proof of concept, entrepreneurship, which I think is maybe a little bit overplayed in social media today. I think there's a lot of like hustle and grind bros who will tell you something that sounds, too good to be true. But, you're someone who seems like kind of made that a reality. So I think that's really admirable in your case. So if you were talking to somebody who, whether it's window cleaning or, whatever the business is, what's something you would say to somebody who maybe might be starting your journey from a year or two ago? What's like your one piece of advice, or maybe your one big idea that you want that person to have to do their own thing?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Um, I would say whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever it is, I would say make sure you go all in. Don't hold anything back. And if it doesn't work in the first week, you got to go a little bit longer. Um, I think the biggest thing I would say is don't be afraid to mess up, especially if you're going really hard. Don't be afraid to mess up because if you're not messing up, chances are you're probably not getting better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, my advice would be, it would be, go all in and don't be afraid to make mistakes and use your 3 pound brain in your head to troubleshoot everything you do. You don't need someone to hold your hand. Like, learn the
Yeah.
frameworks of whatever it is you want to do. And God has given us this unique 3 pound mush in our skull. Use that and troubleshoot until you get it right or until you get it how you want it figured out. And that's usually via failure. So don't be afraid to mess up and get your hands dirty and get creative.
That's awesome, man. I think that's great advice. Um, you can't, failure is not really failure as long as you learn something from it. So even if
Exactly.
you fail or you mess up, as long as you learn something from that process and you get better the next time, then it wasn't really failure. It was, maybe just a sidetrack or a door closing when the other one's opening next to it. So
Yeah, it's just the crazy Karen slamming the door in my face, and I'm just telling her, "No worries,
exactly.
I'll just go sell your neighbor. It's all good."
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
but yeah, and just for context too, as we wrap up, I'm not planning on knocking doors my whole life. So the way my business is set up
Yeah.
now, like we put people on subscription plans, and so the business
Hmm.
model is you don't knock forever. That's just how I started. So as you go, part of that advice as you're troubleshooting, you're putting your systems in place to grow and automate your business, so you don't have to do so you can get out of the way and let your business actually grow too. Just for context, because I know
Yeah.
some people would probably like, oh, this kid's just going to knock doors forever. It's not possible. So, anyway,
Yeah.
my last 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you having you on. Glad to hear things are going well, and maybe we can do this again in a year or so, and you can tell me how because this will be year 3, right? Is that what you were saying?
I'm 18 months in. It'll be
Okay,
technically year 2 with employees in a team, technically. Um, Year 3 for me, I guess you could say that, yeah.
awesome. Well, maybe we can do this again in a year and hear how year 3 went, and maybe hear some of the new knowledge and maybe new skills that you've gotten, and we can talk again about I I guess I should have asked this, or this is usually kind of my ending, is as far as plugging, highlighting anything. Like I'd love to give you some time just to kind of talk about whatever you've got going on, or if you want to plug your business or anything like that. I'd love to give you some time to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's just my name. It's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, if they haven't banned that at this point. It's just Chris Stocks and then Tycoon. So Chris Stocks Tycoon is my channel.
Okay.
And then I guess I could plug this. If anyone hears this and is interested, we are having like a franchise department set up this year for what I do, and
Awesome.
it doesn't require anyone to have to knock doors, but I'll teach people to do it nonetheless. So if someone's
Yeah.
watching this and they want to buy a window cleaning franchise, um, yeah, just hit me up because we have a couple people who are gonna be setting that up before 2025 ends. So other than that, then go on YouTube and
Awesome.
just search my name and watch some content. So
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll get some links from you after it's all said and done, and I'll put those in the YouTube description when this goes live and everything. But yeah, be sure to check out Chris on YouTube, and if you're looking at a window cleaning franchise, we know a guy. So
yes, we do.
awesome. Well, man, it's been awesome having you on. Getting to hear a little bit of your story. Certainly a unique and an interesting one. So, yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is fun. I always love these interactions. Networking is my favorite thing. So people are awesome. I
Yeah.
love people. So thank you.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you would like to inquire about being on the show or advertising with us, please send all inquiries to inquiries@lmlopodcast.com.